guys, welcome to my video. So this is going to be about the squat today. What we're going to look at is how to set up correctly and how to perform the squat. And then maybe a few issues that tend to be quite common with people squatting that we might be able to resolve. First of all, we need to make sure the squat rack is set up correctly. We want the spotter bars at the correct height and we want the J hooks at the correct height. So to estimate, we can say roughly chest height. This does depend on your preference, whether you're going fairly high bar squat or fairly low bar squat. If you're unsure what I mean by that, do watch on and I will explain a little bit about what a high bar and a low bar squat is. Also, these spotter bars just need to allow for the range of motion you're looking to achieve. Also, we'll talk about squat depth further on in a bit. So this is the correct height for myself, so I know I'm ready to set up and go. The last thing you want to do is tiptoe out of the squat rack. It's really dangerous, especially when you have a heavy weight on your back. I would rather someone come out from a fairly low position in the squat rack than too high. So we want these spotter bars on to make sure they catch the bar in case we fail. I know I've set these up too high, especially for my mobility. I know I can get lower than this. I'm just going to demonstrate, for example, why we don't want them too high. So obviously I don't want to hit them each time I squat to depth. I want them just a little bit lower than where I'm squatting to. Now we have the correct heights. Make sure you know where you want to place your hands. If you have particularly tight chest and tight shoulders, you might want to go with a fairly wide grip. If you've got the mobility, try to bring your hands in. That does help to tighten up through the back and help to keep your muscles around your spine nice and tight so you can stay tight even in the bottom of the squat as well, which is really important. So I'll just demonstrate hands in nice and close and hands nice and wide. Find what works for you and your mobility. If you're able to slowly work your hands in, great. What you might find is over time your wrists, elbows and shoulders start to have a little bit of a moan about it. So do approach with caution and take your time. Don't all of a sudden rush your hands in. In both of those examples, what I'm trying to do is squeeze my shoulder blades together and keep my lats really tight. Like I said, that will help to kind of pass that tension down your spine and help to keep the integrity of your spine. What you'll notice about my grip is that I don't like to put my thumb around the bar. I just find my wrist gets a bit irritated by it. It's entirely up to you. You can wrap your thumb round or you can keep your thumb on top. Do whatever feels safe. The next step, after you've found where you like to place your hands, is we want to look at whereabouts the bar wants to lay. Now I mentioned earlier a high bar and the low bar squat. It's quite literally a spectrum, so you might say a high bar squat is right on top of the traps and then a low bar is right at the bottom, kind of across the shoulder blade. Now it's up to you where you place it. As a beginner, I would suggest just place it where it feels comfortable. If you're a little bit advanced and you want to start experimenting with your squat, you might find over time it does evolve and you find a better preference and you're able to press more weight in a different spot than where you've been for the meantime. So I'll just demonstrate now what a low bar squat and a high bar squat looks like on the back. And remember, anywhere in between doesn't really matter so long as it hits your preference. So the low bar and the high bar squat are, at the end of the day, they are a squat, but they will be emphasizing slightly different muscle groups. That's something we can look at later on in another video. So we've established where our hands want to be, we've established where the bar wants to be. Now we're going to step out of the rack. So as soon as your hands get to the bar, your squat has begun. So really try to make a routine out of this. it will minimize the variables and the variance between each squat. So hands to the bar, bar to the back. You'll notice then I stand, let the bar settle. If you've got a lot of weight on your back, that's going to adjust your stance. It's going to shake you around. So I want you to stabilize first. Then you have 3 steps. 1, 2, and if you need a third one, you wiggle the foot to find that position that suits you. Your squat stance is going to be down to your preference. What I would suggest is experiment, especially if you are new to the squat. Once you've found where feels comfortable and you feel you can get to quite a low position, that's your squat stance. Stick with it. Spend a lot of time practicing your squat, getting strong in that position. Maybe a few months down the line, that's when you can start to tweak it, fine-tune it, and then over the next few years you're going to be fine-tuning it ever so slightly to the point where you are finding you're in an optimal position to squat the most weight and also be comfortable and also hit that depth. Again, I'll talk about depth in a bit. Now we want to make sure we can hit depth. Don't worry if you find you can't yet, keep working on it. But what we're looking to do is, as I demonstrated, we want to try and get the hip bone beneath the top of the knee. That's a little bit easier said than done. If you haven't noticed already, I'm wearing Olympic lifting shoes and they have a wedge. About 3.5 centimeters on these, I think. These will help me get to a lower position easier. Now these aren't a necessity. It depends on your mobility. For me, I can still hit depth without them, but what I tend to find is I do what is colloquially known as a butt wink. The butt wink is where the lower back rounds out. So there's a few things you can do to help increase that squat depth. Number one, I would say try to increase your mobility. So you can do lots of different drills. Foam rolling is also a good way to help release and increase temporarily your range of motion. Number two, you can put weights under your heels to kind of create as if you're wearing Olympic lifting shoes. And number three, of course, you can wear Olympic lifting shoes. The reason we want to hit depth is we want to load the glutes and hamstrings up correctly rather than overworking the quads, creating imbalance and creating knee problems further on down the line. So we've got hands going to the bar going onto the back. We've got 3 steps out from the rack. Now we're ready to squat. We're going to take a big breath in. We're going to fill the belly and fill the back. We're going to get air all around the spine to help keep us strong and keep the spine as straight as we can. The way I like to describe this breath, it's almost like we're eating the air. As big a breath as you can. The chest shouldn't rise much. If anything, we should just see the belly push out a bit and really try and feel tension push out in the back as well. Then we're going to hold that breath. Now we've taken that big breath in and we're holding it. Now we're ready to squat. So what we're going to look to do is break at the hips and at the knees. Try to do that at the same time. So the whole time we've performed this squat, we've been holding our breath. Once we get up back to the top is when we're going to release that air. If you find you get to a sticking point, this is where you start to struggle a little bit, let out puffs of air. Don't let out all of your air because you want to keep that air around your spine to help protect you during that squat. Little puffs of air are going to help you push through that sticking point and get to the top of that squat. Now we've actually stood up and finished our squat, we're going to re-back the bar. Walk in until you've hit these bits and then come down. Try not to aim. I've seen a lot of people do this and then they miss on one side. Yes, it's safe for knees to travel over toes. What we don't want to see is that the knees travel so far forward that the heels begin to lift. We want to make sure we've got as much contact with the floor as we can so that we're putting as much force into the floor so it can react and press as much force up into us to help us press the weight back up. Newton's third law. What I do find common when people first start squatting is that they really fight to stay upright. Now what I'm going to suggest is you complement the lean if you have a natural lean. If you're able to stay upright and your back feels fine, then stick with upright. However, if you're one of those people that really fights to stay upright and you're finding a little pinching in your lower back, then take this advice on board and check out what I'm going to do. So we're going to complement that lean as we come down, what we're already naturally doing. What you might find is as well, the bar creeping down the back a little bit is going to help complement that lean. Try not to aim for such a high bar squat if that's what you're doing and you can't stay upright. So check this out. So what I'm going to demonstrate first is someone trying to stay upright who cannot stay upright, but they're trying to really force it. Then I'll demonstrate someone complementing their already natural lean, and then we'll demonstrate with a low bar squat with that complement of the lean, and you can see how it progresses. Head position. What I would suggest is, first of all, do what's comfortable for you. If you find you're one of those people trying to force an upright position, you might find a gaze down to keep your head in line with the rest of your spine. Might help you to bring on that lean forward position to help the bar travel vertically. So what I always do, if I'm observing on the side, is I look for the bar to be travelling vertically up and down. It should always be over the midfoot where the weight is centralised. Now I'll demonstrate the bar travelling horizontally and the bar travelling straight. So the reason we want the bar to travel straight is the points A to B in a straight line is much more efficient. If we have any horizontal movement in a squat, it's wasted energy. That wasted energy could have gone into pressing that bar back up, which means we're going to have lost what weight we could have pressed had we been in a straight line. The squat is a complicated movement. It's not going to come over a short period of time, so work on it. Remember, like I said, it does take a while to evolve. You're going to fine-tune it over the next few years. Stick with it, it's one of the best exercises in the gym in my opinion. I hope this has been of help. If you have any questions, do give me a shout. If you've enjoyed this video and it's been helpful, please don't forget to subscribe. If you're interested in training with me, then do give me a shout, bennyfit.co.uk.